welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle with Damn Fancy Creations, and today we have another fun tumbler tutorial planned for you guys. This tumbler, I love how it turned out. I liked it a lot better than I thought it was going to. It was one of those situations where I was like, I don't really know how I like this, but I just kept going and the end result turned out really, really pretty. So today's tutorial is going to be a sunflower swirl around a leopard print tumbler. Typically, I am doing leopard swirls around different designs, but today I did the entire cup in the leopard print that I typically do, and then added a sunflower swirl around it. And I know that several of you guys have seen the cups where the flowers are outlined in a white marker. So I decided to do that for this one as well. It just kind of helped the sunflowers pop a little bit more, and I really, really like how it turned out. So I think this cup is perfect for summer. Sunflowers are big during summer. I love them. You can see fields of them all the time on the highways. So I thought that this was a perfect cup to my summer line. So if you guys are ready to see how I completed this tumbler, let's get started. Alright guys, so we are going to start with a prepped tumbler. My iPad cut out when I was glittering this tumbler, but I do just apply my champagne glitter with clear spray. I will link a video above showing you guys how I actually apply my glitter with clear spray if you are interested in seeing it. And now we are going to apply our spots with acrylic paint. I like acrylic paint versus Mod Podge for two reasons. Number one, it dries much quicker than Mod Podge, and number two, you get that color coverage that you want. Sometimes if you just use Mod Podge, whenever the Mod Podge dries, you're able to see the underneath color through it, and if you use an acrylic paint color that matches your glitter color, you are not going to see a different color glitter through the glitter once it dries. So I am just sprinkling on my brown glitter. I believe this color is actually Cold Brew from Peachy Olive Glitter. I just have it in a different glitter container. And I will just sprinkle the glitter on and then bang it off really, really well. And then we are going to take our paintbrush and just dab the black paint around the edges of the brown spots. I like to use a dabbing motion rather than swiping because it gives it a more realistic feel, and the edges are a little bit more uneven, which is what I think gives it a more realistic feel than just a straight line or something like that. And I will usually dab 2 or 3 black paint lines around each spot, and then I will sprinkle on the glitter. Now, when I first started doing leopard print, I did actually look at real leopards to kind of see how their print actually looked, and that is basically just how I learned to create my patterns. So I'm just sprinkling on the glitter. The black sparkly glitter I use is Obsidian from CCDIY. I like it because it's fine and it still holds a little bit of sparkle even underneath epoxy. I know sometimes black glitter can get really dull and tar-like, but I do like this one. And then I'm going to go around and just make some random black lines in between the larger spots, just like you would see on a real leopard. And then we will go back and sprinkle the black glitter on these spots. And if you did not know, there is a difference between cheetah print and leopard print. Cheetah print is basically just a bunch of solid black spots. The leopard print is the print that has a mixture of the brown and black spots and then some black spots that are left open. So just in case anyone didn't know, fun fact for the day. And once my acrylic paint dries, I will brush this off really good and then seal it with Rust-Oleum 2x clear. So I had already epoxied this one and sanded it really good. And now it's time to apply our flowers. If you guys aren't familiar with how to print then cut, I will link a video now that will show you how I set up my print then cut paper. This is the video that I'm going to be linking is my lemon video, but it's the same concept. You can just use any shape with it. So for my sunflowers, I wanted them in a swirl pattern, and I wanted the middle of the tumbler to be a little bit more bulky than the ends. So I did place a larger sunflower section kind of in the middle of my tumbler and at an angle. If your cup is curved like mine, sometimes you do have to be careful with the shapes that you want to place on there, especially if you're using printable vinyl. Sometimes the vinyl can wrinkle a little bit, but it does stretch. So if there's one spot that just, you know, won't lie flat, you can kind of stretch it just a little bit to make it kind of fit that curve a little bit more. And a tip that I like to use, no matter if I'm using printed vinyl, printable vinyl, or water slide, if there's ever an issue where there's just one spot that just isn't working out, I have gone back before and actually touched up the areas with paint or inks, depending on whatever will look best. And 9 times out of 10, you can always touch up a little spot with paint or ink and make it look really good. And this larger piece that I had it did have a lot of little tiny little weed little things sticking out. I don't know what you would call them. Really thin little flowers. And I wasn't crazy about all of those on there. So I did go back and cut some of them off. And I also lifted some of the vinyl, which I believe is what I'm doing now, and placing some other flowers underneath the larger piece. That way you have some flowers that are overlapping others, so it doesn't just look like an awkward sticker just placed on top of other stickers. So this way you have some flowers that are underneath that large bulky section and then some flowers that are on top of them. And you guys can see that with these flowers, I kind of placed them first to see if I thought they would look good. And then I took the backing off and stuck them down. And I did cut single leaves as well. So that way I can add some flowers and some leaves. Some leaves are overlapping flowers, some of them are underneath. So you can really just kind of play with the placement of them. And I also made my flowers different sizes. I tended to use the single larger flowers towards the end of my sunflower design, and several of the little smaller ones in the center of the design. That way I could kind of build up the 3D aspect of it and overlap them if I needed to. I didn't want a ton of large flowers in the center because I still wanted to have a good bit of leopard print showing. And it's easier to overlap and build up a design with smaller objects versus larger ones. And y'all can see, like for this one, I did cut a flower in half. So you can really just kind of play with your design and get it how you want it. And I know several people have asked as well, with printable vinyl, you do not need to seal it. You just print it, apply it to your cup, and then epoxy it. There's no need to seal it. Colors don't bleed. And I have tried several brands before, and the Cricut printable vinyl is the best that I have tried. I do not like the Silhouette brand. At least for my printer, the ink just did not absorb very well into the paper, and it just was a big mess. So I just stick with Cricut, which is probably the only thing that I use from that brand. So after I get the sunflower stickers on there and placed how I want them, I will epoxy 2 more times, sand down any little printable vinyl pokies that are sticking up, and then it is time to outline the flowers with our paint pen. So my favorite paint pens to use are the POSCA brands. I have a really fine white POSCA paint pen, but I could not find it. So I went with my second favorite, which is the Craftsmart. I tried to outline a couple of them with the Craftsmart paint pen, and it just does not give the coverage that I want. It's not as quite as opaque as the POSCA paint pens. So I did end up switching and just went with the thicker POSCA marker. It wasn't super thick, but I wish I did have a thinner one. I just could not find it at the time. So I basically just started at the bottom and outlined the leaves and then the flower petals, and just kind of accented some things along the way. And like I said in my intro, I wasn't too sure how I was going to like this outlining, but I just kept going with it. And as I got a few of these flowers outlined, I actually really liked how it was turning out. So I was really happy with it and just continued to outline all of them. and this video is obviously sped up quite a bit. The outlining does take a little bit of time, especially if you have a bunch of leaves or flowers. You want to make sure that you're not making random lines. You want to try to outline it so it looks clean and crisp and really makes those flowers pop. So you guys can see right now that I am going over the Craft Smart paint pen lines with the POSCA brand, and that white just really pops a lot more with the POSCA paint pens as opposed to the Craft Smart, which is why I like their paint pens so much. I do get all of my POSCA paint pens from Amazon. And there's no right or wrong way how to do this. You don't have to outline every single little petal if you don't want to. You can add more paint if you want. You can do a different color. I thought about doing a mint color paint pen, but I decided just to go with white for this one to see how I liked it. And when I was doing this, it really reminded me of Andy Warhol and all of his pop art paintings, which I think is really cool, kind of how people draw inspiration from previous artists that came before our time and just kind of bring it into art today. Another fun fact for today, if you guys did not know, I was an art major in college before I changed it to education, but eventually got back to art, which I love. Just creating fun things all day. And one thing I will point out is that when you are applying the paint marker, you will have to kind of be careful about your hand placement. You don't want to apply your paint pen or paint marker and then put your hand right on it as you go to do another flower or leaf. So that is definitely something that you will have to be careful on. So this is pretty much all I do for the entire tumbler, just outlining the flowers, adding little accents on the leaves or in the center of the sunflowers, and that is pretty much it. And obviously, the more flowers that you apply to the tumbler, or the more leaves or little tiny little flower pieces you add, the more outlining you will be doing. So if you don't want to be outlining a ton of little tiny pieces, then just start with a few larger flowers. And I will mention, because I'm sure it will be asked, after I applied my paint pen, I just let it dry. I did not seal it with anything. I just let it dry, and once it was completely dry, I just applied it to my turner and put the final few layers of epoxy on. And after you outline, if you wanted to add a decal, this is when you would add your decal. But if you don't, you can just put your epoxy on. I did also already Dremel my edges. I always Dremel my top and bottom rims. That way your epoxy has a good seal to the top onto the stainless, and everything is sealed in really well. And after I get the bulk of the larger pieces outlined, I just kind of stepped back a little bit and just looked at what little spots may need a little more detailing, or if I missed some of the little tiny flowers to outline, because you want to be sure that everything is kind of cohesive and flows together nicely. And like I mentioned before, once this paint pen is dry, I will just put it on my turner for the final layer or two of epoxy, and then it will be complete. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something new, or if you had questions about how to do this, it was answered. And I can't wait to see what kind of cups you guys come up with, what flowers or colors you decide to use, because the possibilities are really endless when it comes to this type of cup. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to find my Facebook group that is linked in the description. Thanks for watching.